Geoff, appreciate your time. Is the
Pleasure.
Queensland government a serious bidder?
Look, I really think they are. I think it's a great move by the Queensland government because it's about jobs and it's about tourism, which is really very important to the Queensland economy. But also this gets them in the room. This gets them in with the other major front runners that we're told are Brookfield, BGH and Bain Capital. It gets them in with Deloitte next week. And I see their bid, I see them marrying themselves to one of the other major bidders and being part of a consortium moving forward. But this gives them a stake in this a developing situation of how Virgin's going to fly out of this. And of course, we cast our minds back a few weeks ago. New South Wales and Queensland were having a bit of a stoush as to where this airline, the rebirthing of Virgin Australia, would be based, Brisbane or Sydney. So there's several state governments that have a keen interest in this. And there was also some suggestions that the Victorian government wanted Virgin Australia to relocate down there. So the federal government, may be doing some grandstanding a little bit on this. But the reality is the three states are very interested, and Queensland is extremely interested in making sure Virgin Australia flies out of administration.
Geoff, whoever the buyer, what is the likely outcome in terms of what Virgin Australia will look like post-sale?
Well, look, that's a very interesting question. I believe that the real value in Virgin Australia is its staff. You've got 10,000 extraordinary staff there, passionate, loyal, dedicated people, and you'd go a long, long way before you found a better group of airline staff in the world, not just Australia, in the world. And you then got 12 million frequent flyers members. Now, again, they're the Velocity members. Now, to me, they're the two great assets of Virgin Australia. So any move to break it up and to take it down market, I would then say, well, why buy it? Because, you might as well start from scratch. And going down market to compete with Jetstar is going to be just nothing but grief because it's such a
Jetstar is such a fantastic brand. Mind you,
Qantas is a great brand too. But there's more money to be made at the top end of the market than the bottom end of the market. And the real value for Virgin Australia is the top end. So I believe it'll be left broadly intact. There will be some changes, but that's where the value is. And if it's not kept pretty much intact, then why buy it?
Geoff, for those of us starting to get itchy feet, when the country's internal borders do start opening again, what can we expect when it comes to airfares? It appears Qantas at least is planning to offer very cheap seats to get people flying again. Do you think people will need a bit of encouragement to get out of their homes and take that, I guess some people would see it as a risk, flying to other places?
Well, I can't show it to you, but there's an interesting graph that shows fear versus price. And after SARS in Hong Kong, Cathay Pacific put the most bizarre prices in the market, and they had sold 50,000 seats within about half an hour. So there is a point where people say, yeah, I'm comfortable. This, of course, is far more serious, and I'm possibly making a little bit light of it. So people are going to have to be assured that from the hygienic cleanliness aspect, about the aircraft and the airport terminals. That's a big challenge for the industry and for airports. But yes, we're going to get some very low fares to stimulate demand, and then the fares will sort of move up slightly, I feel, as airlines try and recover their losses over the last 2 or 3 months, which have been absolutely savage.
Yeah, and how much of Virgin and Qantas's business is actually the overseas travel? Because it looks like that won't be able to happen until, probably getting into 2021.
Look, indeed, and the overseas travel component, how quickly that opens up really depends on a cure/vaccine for COVID-19. Virgin, in fact, is in a much better position because most of their revenue comes from the domestic market, whereas Qantas has far more international coverage, as we know. So their situation in that space is a bit more difficult, although, of course, Qantas extremely well placed, probably the best placed airline in the world as far as deep pockets are concerned, as we've learnt in the last week or so. But of course, we're going to have New Zealand coming on fairly soon, I would think, and a lot of people who would have gone to Fiji or Singapore or Bali will say we'll go to New Zealand instead, and vice versa for New Zealanders. So I think the travel market between our two countries will be very robust for quite some time, as people who have put off that trip to New Zealand suddenly say, well, now's a good time to go.